of Mayor and Council, I want to welcome everybody here. If you will rise for the invocation by Councilman McCoy.
If you would, bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to gather in your name. Lord, we are blessed. Lord, we continue to try to walk the path, Lord, that you have laid out for us. Lord, please empower us with your strength and wisdom to make the right decisions for our community and this city. Lord, continue to watch over our world. Lord, continue to watch over our city. Lord, continue to bless us and keep us safe. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, a reminder to council that we do have an executive session following tonight's meeting. You've all received the minutes from our January 25th meeting. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion to receive the minutes.
Councilman McCoy, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. You also have the minutes from our planning session meeting on January 28th. If there are no comments or questions on those minutes, I'll accept the motion to receive them.
Councilman Holland, I make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilman Santos, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, we're going to introduce a couple of new employees. Are we asking Mrs. Merritt to come up? And the chief's on deck.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to introduce to you Tanya Bunting. She's our new accounting representative. She's been with us for a couple weeks now. She came back, so we're glad. But we're very happy to have her.
We always like to invite new employees to this meeting. I know it's a little uncomfortable. Most of us, when you get a new job, don't have to stand up in front of a bunch of people, but we are a public organization, and it gives each of us that maybe don't see you during the day. So I would ask you just to walk. Everybody would love to shake your hand and welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Merritt. Next, I'll call up the chief to introduce our new officer.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm going to call Riley Parker for a minute, and I'm going to introduce him and have him meet each one of you. And I'd just like to say a little bit about him. This is Riley Parker. Riley was working at Laurel Police Department. He'll have 3 years as a certified officer in March, so he was with Laurel for nearly 3 years. He just started with the Seaford Police Department February 14th. And tonight, his mother and father, Dana and Joey, first time I met him. But I want to tell you that Riley he's doing a fantastic job for the city. I couldn't be happier. We're very fortunate to have him on our department. He's on field training for 4 weeks. Hope to set him free here in about 3 weeks. And I think he's going to be a great addition for the Seaford Police Department. And I'd like to have each one of you go over and introduce yourself. I don't know if you're doing pictures tonight or.
I think Trish is going to do them out there. I remember speaking to Officer Parker's dad a few years ago, and we had missed that opportunity then. We're glad that the timing worked out, and he's back in Seaford, so we're glad to have him here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any correspondence tonight?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close our regular meeting and open up the public hearing. I'm going to turn it over to our building official, Mr. Mike Bailey.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Michael.
So I just have one item for the public hearing for tonight, and that's for Pritchett Properties LLC, and they're requesting a subdivision of 2 parcels into 11 lots located on Hurley Park Drive. Tax mapping parcels 531-10.18-29.00 and parcel 132.00. This is the area there at the south end of Hurley Park Drive. It's behind the Dollar General store and at the base of the bridge there at Stein Highway, and the railroad tracks there to the east as well. We did receive this plan from Ken at Axiom Engineering showing the proposed 11 lots. They are zoned R1, low-density residential, which has a minimum lot size of 7,500 square foot and a minimum frontage of 75 feet. There's 11 lots proposed, and these are a little smaller than the minimum requirements. They have a frontages of plus or minus 50 feet, and I believe the square footage is a plus or minus around 4,000. Some of them are a little larger, some of them are a little smaller, but the Board of Adjustment did grant variances to reduce the lot size and frontages for these lots on August 5th, 2020, and they do match existing lots already on Hurley Park Drive. If there's any, that's pretty much covers their request. If there's any questions for myself, well, the property owner, Kevin Pritchett, is here as well as Ken.
Okay, are there any questions from council? Councilman
Mike.
Holland?
Is it 11 or 10? Because in the pack.
It's 11. I think
Okay.
there was a little typo on,
Okay.
on that. I've noticed.
Okay, Councilman King?
Yep. Is it possible to bring the diagram back up?
Yes, sir.
So my question around parking, or is off-street parking,
Yeah, when these are developed, part of the plan review, they require 2 off-street parking spaces per lot.
okay,
It's all single-family homes proposed.
okay.
Okay. Other questions from Councilman Santos?
Yeah. Are there a lot of other properties in the city of Seaford that have 50 feet frontage?
They vary, but yeah, there's a lot around.
Okay. If there wasn't a variance, if that hadn't been granted, how many lots would have they been able to put it there?
I believe if they didn't get the variance, they would have had to reduce it by 4 lots.
So it would have been 7.
Yes.
I had a few concerns because there's over there by the Muirfield Developments, the frontage over there, the properties, correct me if I'm wrong, those are 60 feet, right?
I'm not sure off the top of my head what Muirfield is, but it's a different zone, and they can be 35 feet over there. It's R2.
Okay, those over there, I was looking at the map, they're 50 feet across, the majority of them. And whenever people drive around there, there's, it's really crowded. I've heard complaints about that. And I'm looking at this, and here they have 50 feet frontage compared to 60 feet over there. And over here, this is a dead-end road compared to Muirfield, where they can keep driving around. So I think that's a little bit to be concerned about, because 30, 40, 50 years down the line, this is going to be really crowded, or whenever all the houses get built. And so that's one of the concerns that I had. I'm looking at the picture right there. I mean, the 2 houses next door, they don't look similar to the ones that, what's being proposed.
It's not shown on this, but further north on Hurley Park, the lots do get smaller.
I did an average of all those properties, and it was an average of 0.29. There were some properties that were a little bit bigger, some properties were a little bit smaller. But I'm concerned with the amount of how tight everything's going to be. With it being 11 lots, I thought it was 10 lots yesterday. So I went and drove around there, and I took a look, I think it's going to be really tight.
Other questions or comments from
Just
Councilman King?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the question I had around parking, so looking at that, they still have the ability to park on the road.
It's a public road, yes.
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking on what Councilman Santos said, to get a lot of concerns, especially with Muirfield as an example. This is in line with what's currently there, right, as far as the size of lots or what's already there.
Yeah, there's similar sized lots
Okay.
up on Hurley Park.
So there's no concern with like emergency, as
No.
far as a fire truck or
The
an ambulance or
right-of-way-
something, getting through, all that's the same?
Right, all that's
Okay.
the same. Yeah, the street width is the same as what's there
Okay.
already.
And maybe to ask the question of the building official, when this went through planning and zoning, the fire chief was represented on the planning and zoning commission, is that correct?
He will, I'm not sure if he was here for that meeting, but he does get these,
He sits on the
he does
planning and
get the
zoning
notices,
commission.
yes.
Because I know Mearsfield can get a little sketchy as far as trying to get people apart on both sides. And I just didn't know if that was a concern, the
Yeah.
way that that's laid out. But
Let me say a couple things if you don't mind. So a couple things with Muirfield. As the building official stated, they're required 2 off-street parking spaces. In Muirfield, that house is built with a garage, so that counts as 1 parking space. So I think part of what's going on there a lot now, obviously, a lot of people own a lot of cars, so parking can be an issue. We have received resident complaints about that. The variance that was given for these lots does not, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it does not give a variance for lot coverage or setbacks, is that correct?
Correct, it was just
Okay.
the width and the square footage.
So yes, the width and the square footage were changed, but when you start to talk about lot coverage, it's still, my memory says 35% of the lot is the maximum that can be covered by buildings,
Right.
paving, anything like that. So the lot coverage will be the same as in all R1 areas, okay? So the areas adjacent to this that are zoned similarly, as will the setbacks. So they did not ask for, nor did they receive any setbacks. So as the building department reviews plans, they will still have to meet the R1 setbacks, which are 20-foot front, 20-foot rear, 20-foot aggregate total between the buildings. So by that very nature, that's going to require a little bit smaller footprint of house. So that should assist with some of the density concerns that you have, Councilman.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Councilman Holland.
Hey, Mike, if you could, as far as I know, that street is known to flood. What is going to be done as far as
They
that?
have made some improvements.
Okay.
They discovered a broken stormwater pipe early in this project and have repaired that. And I don't believe they have any issues since that. And part of this development will include curbing and a gutter pan going down to the catch
Okay.
basins, yeah.
And in our design development, with the Public Works Director and the building official and their engineers, Axiom Engineering, initially, when they planned this development, there was a stormwater pond at I'm losing my bearings here, but along the bridge to address stormwater.
Yeah,
But
the
as
very uppermost right one there was proposed to be a pond.
But as they did their design and found this broken stormwater pipe, went through the calculations, looked at some options, that's one of the reasons why the plan developed into being able to, instead of a stormwater pond, they were able to add the 11th lot. I believe that's a correct statement.
Correct.
No other questions from council? Are there any questions or comments from the public? I'll take that as a no.
It's
Yes, please.
Ken from Axiom Engineering.
Yep.
Good evening, Ken Christenberry with Axiom
Ken.
Engineering.
Good
We
evening.
surveyed the land and did the property. One thing that may be part of the confusion, lot number 11 exists today. It's the one that's right next to that existing dwelling, I guess. That's actually here. We found concrete markers when we surveyed it. That's actually the smallest lot in the project. So there's 10 proposed lots of the 2 remaining, and then we called it a lot 11 because it's kind of easier to follow. But that's actually already there. That lot is 4,920 square feet today. Every other lot is over 5,000 square feet. I hope that helps clarify, and that may have been part of why people were not sure whether it was a 10 or 11 lot project. I'd call it, 10 lots out of 2, but really there's 11 lots there when you're done because there was one already there that my client doesn't. Hope that.
Yep, thank you very
Any
much.
other
Appreciate-
questions? Feel free to call me back up.
Councilman Santos?
Yeah, I'm still looking at the picture. I think, and I'm still comparing it to Muirfield because Muirfield, people can keep on driving all the way around. Here, it's a dead end road. You have to, you have to double back. There's going to be a lot of houses. There's going to be a lot of cars. and I think there's going to be a lot of complaints. And it's also in a very secluded part. It's, I don't want this to be a problem area in the future because of the high density. This was zone R1. I know there was a variance, but yesterday I thought there was going to be 10 lots, and I thought that was already pretty tight. Now it's 11 lots. That was never presented, 11 lots, So, I did averages, I did all that stuff. I thought the best place, best number of lots here, still thinking it and keeping the developer in mind should be closer around 8, maybe 9, but 11 lots, that's really tight. Might as well switch this to a different zoning, put townhomes or something.
Okay. Do you want to move on to number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, Councilman Henderson.
Is it, maybe Mr. Christenberry can address this. Is it fair to say that there was a typo that it shouldn't be 11 lots because you had one existing lot that was already in and it should be 10?
Possibly, yes.
I mean, does that?
I can tell you that our data table on our plan reads, we make reference to the fact that there are 3 tax parcels there. The 3 tax parcels, could you put the plan back on the screen?
Nope. Sorry. You got too many buttons being pushed.
So, today, this is one parcel, it's a tax parcel that exists. This is another tax parcel, and this is the third. And our application is changing the 2 larger parcels into the subdivision that you see. So, do you end up with 11 lots? Yes, you're actually starting with 3. So is it a 10-lot subdivision of 2 lots? Yes. Is it a 11-lot subdivision of 3 lots? That's not really inaccurate either. But our data table references that all 3 of those parcels are there, what their sizes are, and then indicates the lots that are laid out on this plan.
Just looking at your Mr. Pritchett's application back in 2020 for the Board of
variance.
Adjustment, for the variance. And it recognizes that there's an existing parcel.
Yes, and we're not changing that one.
Right.
It's actually the smallest one in the project.
It was already
Existing.
and could have been built on at any time,
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Lot
So-
11 is unaltered by this
So we're not
application.
really discussing that particular lot because it's not in play.
It's already, it already exists the way we would like it to be.
So I think we're bandying about words, whether it's 11 or 10, but I think we're talking about the 10 new lots that you laid out,
Yeah,
correct?
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Mike, I'll move on to number 2.
It's for Burley.
Oh, Mr. Mears.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I was asked to put together a proposal for trash service for the city of Seaford for our annual planning session. Most of you guys were there, so you are familiar with this, and I was then asked to bring it to council tonight for a public hearing. So with that came along a couple other things and how we are looking to do leaf and limb service and also cleanup week. So what I did, I was compared it to 2 other municipalities that I knew had trash service. And what I mean by trash service is the municipality oversees a trash service. We don't go out and buy trash trucks or anything like that. We just oversee we put out the bid, contractors bid on it, and then we pretty much administer the trash contract. Every parcel would receive one, and I'm only speaking about residential. This would not be commercial. Every residential lot would get one trash roll-off or trash container and one recycling. So trash is collected weekly, recycling is bi-weekly. So in Georgetown, they also include a service of leaf and limb pickup which is included in it, which is a pretty great rider on the contract, actually. They also allow one bulk item a week, so say you could put out a mattress one week, and then the next week you could put out a box spring. So the thought is that you can get rid of larger items sooner than having to wait, annually for us to come around and clean up week and pick up your large items. They're currently in a contract for $68 per service per quarter, which is about $22.60 a month. Their current contract with GFL is $20.46, so they're making about a little over $2.21 per service per month. Laurel is basically the same thing. Their charge is a little more. They're $33 a month, and I'm not sure exactly what their contract is with their provider. I just was trying to use some numbers in their budget to figure it out. So, but I do know that they're making a profit on that as well. The thought behind it is, we could administer a program where it's where trash services is guaranteed to be picked up weekly at every parcel, with the hope that parcels and homes in the city would be in a better condition on a weekly basis. Okay, so there's a nice schedule that GFL provided. It's hard to see up there, but the orange is yard waste, yellow is recycling, holidays. So you get a nice schedule for the whole year. So it's pretty nice. Like I said, they do the recycling and trash once a week. They do yard waste. Yard waste is reduced quite a bit from the current service that we have now, as far as pickup times, how much they pick up, all those sorts of things. So it's a real change from what we do. I'm trying to keep this kind of quick, so I'm kind of breezing through this, but we'll have some questions at the end. So right now, for leaf and limb, these are our requirements. Bags must weigh less than 40, 6 foot lengths, 4 foot around, all these type of things. We, quite honestly, ours is rather abused, and we sort of allow that, and we're going to try to limit that. Our service is not for cutting down whole trees and cleaning up. You're cleaning up your yard, yes. Or if you have a storm come through and you get some branches down, yes. But if you want to cut down a 100-foot tree, that's not what this service is for. So this is just typical pictures of things that we're picking up on a weekly basis. This is our site where we dump it. It's a mess to manage. So just what this does to our manpower in general, leaf and limbs I'm talking about now. So we have one truck out there, one man, 5 days a week, picking up small bags, small piles. Then on Fridays, we typically go out with one backhoe, 2 to 3 dump trucks, 3 to 4 men out of a 7-man department. It takes 1 to 2 days. So if you turn that into man hours, it's kind of hit you in the face as far as what we really have, because this department, we do leaf and limb, we do streets, which includes leaf and limb, but also we do everything to do with the water system, and we do everything to do with the sanitary sewer system. So these 7 men do it all. So so right now we're up to about 104 man hours spent out of 280 man hours. So 7 men, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 280 hours for all those people. Currently, I've been down a man for almost a year or so. So, we're talking 240 man hours. So if I dedicate 104 man hours a week to just picking up leaf and limbs, 37% of our time is picking up leaf and limbs. So it's a great service. Our customers love it, but it is a drain on our current setup. So we do also, from October 1st to the end of December, we're also out with the leaf and limb machine, which requires 2 men, a dump truck, and a leaf machine. That's 80 man hours. So you put that on the 104, it's even more. So this is just a rundown, like I said. So if I have 240 man hours, 104 man hours are for leaf and limbs. I have an on-call operator that does all the required water sampling. We have daily, 365-day water sampling. That one operator is doing that 40 hours a week. If I wanted to run the sweeper for 40 hours a week, that's 184 man hours right there. So that leaves 56 man hours to do anything associated with the water department, sewer department, preventative maintenance, replacements, things like that. So, you know, you're talking, that's 1.5 men, or 1/3 men for a week. So it's hard to get anything done with 1/3 men. So cleanup week, you know, we budget $20,000 a year. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. And the biggest part of it is that it takes about 600 man hours to get it done. We pull from all departments, come and contribute. The Public Works Department could not do this by ourselves, so we are fortunate that all departments chip in and give a person here and there, because like I said, it's up to about 600 man hours to complete it. It's no longer cleanup week. It's now cleanup week in a day, or cleanup week in 2 days. The city has just grown and we can't get it done in a week anymore, so. You know, it's unsightly piles and unwanted people rummaging through your piles. It's a trash vendor that collected weekly bulk items might be able to, you know, satisfy the need, you know, because there are a lot of people that abuse this as well. You know, there's a lot of people that, not a lot, there are some people that also bring in from out of town and drop off, and there's no way to police it. There's no way, you know, once it's there, what are you going to do? You know, we're going to pick it up, we're going to clean up the streets and move on. So people know that. So I could talk about that, but I won't. Discussion points. So there's some pros. All residential properties will have trash service. This should help keep properties clean. It's additional revenue. I don't think that's why we would do it, but it does help. Leaf and limb will be completed by a vendor, included in the cost of trash pickup, which will provide us with more man hours for other tasks. One thing I didn't do was talk about the costs associated with running that one truck and that one man. And so there would be some cost savings to the city of Seaford, you know, if we included that with the trash service. So less leaf and limb sitting at the curbs cause an unsightly appearance. You know, eliminate the need to maintain the leaf and limb disposal area, which I could have $25,000, $30,000 and, you know, pushing that back in a year. I spent quite a bit this year pushing it back. So bulk items will be picked up by a trash vendor. You know, they could, like I said, it could be one item this week. You could have one every week. If you had a bulk item, the trash vendor would pick that up from every home. So there is a way to get rid of these bulk items that we pick up on cleanup week. There's no large pile sitting around on the curb causing unsightly appearances. That would be both with cleanup week and with leaf and limb, you know, because the leaf and limb picked up by the vendor would be much smaller piles. And then there would be no trash or limbs brought in from out of town. The cons is not every property owner will want a trash service. We have to administer the trash program, which means, you know, somebody has an added task. Big changes to the amount of type of leaf and limb that the property owner can dispose of. There would be a learning curve there. And a big change to cleanup week format. You know, there is potential that someone's trash service could actually go down. There's economy and scale, so, you know, if we get a good price from a vendor, somebody could actually have, their bill could actually go down. So one other thing I wanted, there are some other options. If we didn't, you know, I kind of leaned that towards going with a trash vendor to pick up leaf and limb and also pick up cleanup week. But there are other options for cleanup week that we discussed. You know, we talked about, you know, totally changing how we do it now and maybe having dumpsters at our compost facility where customers bring their trash to us. You know, that's another option if we didn't want to go with the trash service. Or then we talked about, you know, some quarterly pickups or some call-ahead pickups and some different options. So there are other options for this. I just kind of geared this toward the trash service because that's what I was asked to investigate. So.
Any questions or comments from City Council? Councilman Henderson.
I'll make two comments. There's one pro and one con. One pro I didn't see was that with a single vendor, you're going to have fewer 40,000-pound trash trucks going up and down streets that aren't made for those trucks really, and it puts a lot of wear and tear on the streets. but the con is you're gonna be relying on a single vendor to perform, and we've had, you know, I think we discussed at the forum, you know, bonding and making sure that people could perform, and we had an alternative if the vendor failed. But, yeah, so those are the two that, should be added to the list.
Any other questions or comments from council? Any questions or comments from the public? Please come up to the mic and state your name, address.
Jay Milligan, 1 Crossgate Drive. I think if you're going to assess a trash fee on everybody in town, I think there's a lot of people now that, particularly older people, that use like 1 bag a week, and they're combining their trash.
Right.
So I think that should be some consideration. And I'm of a mind of a small government, not bigger government, to be quite frank with you, government control. And actually, the rates I saw are probably higher than people negotiate individually. So I think that's something to be considered.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Mr. Hardesty.
Mark Hardesty. I own property in Laurel, and they provide the trash service. And I got to say, Laurel's tax structure is a lot higher than the city of Seaford's. Their water, sewer, and trash service, I mean, my units run anywhere from $130 to $150 a month. It's very excessive, and they have to pay more rent for that for me to be able to afford it. And I've owned property in Georgetown. It doesn't seem to work out very good. I think the city of Seaford would have to hire somebody just for complaints from people that didn't get their trash picked up, they didn't get the can. I mean, I just see a whole host of mess, and I kind of agree with Jay that it may not be as good as it sounds. I mean, I know that it could be a profit center, but the city of Seaford does a great job picking up limbs, and I've always wondered about the trash week, and I see the abuses, and I see people bringing stuff into the city of Seaford to dump it, and I don't think that's a good thing, but it's a hell of a service. No other town offers that service, and it's one of the reasons why I like Seaford. If I have a limb go down on a property, I can cut it up, and I don't have to make a special trip to get rid of it. So I know it's very expensive, and I think maybe Burley, I think his crew does a great job, and I think maybe they need a little bit more help. But I do think the city of Seaford residents really appreciate what's being offered now, and I think they would be willing to pay for it. But I don't think getting in the trash business. My father was town manager of Laurel when Laurel actually had employees picking up trash and had their own trash truck. It's not a great idea, I don't think, but anyway, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? I'd like to say this is a first time bringing it to the public as just a discussion item. It's something that's being discussed. It's something that's been talked about for many years, and I think people have been afraid even to bring the topic up, scared that people might go crazy, but it's a conversation that I think we need to have one way or the other and get feedback on what is important to the residents, what works, what doesn't work. We're not committed one way or another. We do know that cleanup week has gotten out of hand for the city to maintain, and we do need to make changes one way or another going forward. So I'd encourage the public to reach out to city council, to the city manager, let us know your thoughts on this. We're not set one way or another. This is not coming back up for a vote anytime soon. We want to get feedback on this, but we do want to discuss it, make people aware. And what you said, Mr. Hardesty, I think is so true, and what we all talked about. Cleanup week is one of the most special things Seaford offers, and we all kind of struggle. How do we handle that going forward? Because it's an important service, and I know my family certainly enjoys it. And I'm grateful that Burley didn't show a picture of my house when I cut down my stuff. So thank you, Mr. Mears. So I appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing and reopen our regular meeting. I'll turn it back over to our building official, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. So these are the findings of facts for the Hurley Park Drive subdivision. Zoning is R1, low-density residential. Minimum lot size there is 7,500 square foot with a minimum frontage of 75 feet. They're requesting this to be a 10-lot subdivision of 2 existing parcels. The proposed frontages are plus or minus 50 feet, and the Board of Adjustment did grant variances to reduce the lot size and frontages for these lots on August 5th, 2020, and they do match some existing lots on Hurley Park Drive in their size. Planning and Zoning did make a favorable recommendation to Council on February 3rd, 2022.
Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Councilman Henderson. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request of Pritchett Properties LLC to subdivide 2 parcels into 10 lots located on Hurley Park Drive, tax map and parcel number 531-10.18-129.00 and 132.00 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Henderson?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Holland?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman McCoy?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman King?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Santos?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. Thank you. Okay, I think before we get started on our agenda, we have some new signs out in our park. It's always nice to see stuff refreshed. Tricia went out today and took, Mrs. Newcomer went out today and took pictures. I think these new signs look fabulous. Great job. Appreciate the work on that one to make you aware. If you get a chance, right out there, take a look. They look sharp, really do. Thank you so much. All right, under new business number 1, we have the new rate fee schedule.
All right, there's several aspects to this, so I believe the first person that we're going to have come up is June to talk about the changes in the water and sewer utility rates and the energy supply cost.
Okay, back on the November 9th, 2021 council meeting, Chris Sims was here and made a presentation, and at that time you approved an increase in the water rates by $3.13, and also an increase in the sewer rate by $5.18. And so we're just updating our fee and rate schedule to reflect that change, and it is effective as of March 1st, 2022 for February consumption. And then the other item is the energy supply cost, and that rate is set by DMEC as part of our wholesale power contract. And so that rate actually changed in 2021, and we just need to update our fee schedule to reflect that. So it changed from 0.06879 per kilowatt hour to 0.06947, and that actually was effective 1/1/2021.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And I believe the next one, Ms. Katie Hickey, is going to talk about park rental fees. And just a note, all of these changes are highlighted in red in your package on the fee and rate schedule that's been provided by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Over the past several years, the Parks and Recreation Department has seen quite an increase in rentals and special events. In 2021, there were 59 special event permits issued, as well as 76 park and/or pavilion rentals. And having most of these in the weekends, there's only 52 weeks in a year, so you can do that math. The reason we're asking for this increase is because there's increased costs for annual operations such as fertilizer, seed, marking paint. The cost of maintenance has risen, repairs to fencing, supplying mulch, and equipment for the mowers. There's been an increase in wages. And honestly, many people travel out of town to participate in our programs and our sports leagues and events because we do offer very fair prices for high-quality facilities. This price increase, I believe, is not substantial and does compare with other local facilities. And we also believe the increase will keep any renter and or host accountable for taking care of those facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hickey.
Okay, so the final set of changes will be presented by the building official, Mike Bailey.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Again.
So the final changes on the fee and rate schedule for me, I'm proposing an increase in the rental license fees from $50 to $75. That initial $75 does include their annual inspection, and I'm also including a raise to a $75 re-inspect fee if it fails for some reason or if there's a no-show, if we have to go send the inspector back out, as well as a $50 late fee if the license is not acquired by the first of the year. That's what we're seeing a lot of is late entries for the rental license. The late fee is $25, my apologies. So in order to deter that lateness, we want to assess a late fee. Other towns do it, and we did do a fee study here from other neighboring communities. Now these are our fees based on our current rate schedule. We built 1,651 rental units for 2022 at $50. So that generated $82,550 in revenue. We're estimating 1,787 rental units in 2023 at $50, and that's $89,350. And these were some example rates that we put together based on the 2023 unit estimate. And you can see there at the $75 rate, which I'm proposing, that's $134,025. And these are just to compare neighboring towns that have rental licenses. There on that chart, the highest is Fenwick Island at Blades, $200 per unit, and then they vary from there. The average rate is $95 and the median is $75. So we looked at just going with the median rate at $75 to be competitive with the other towns. And Bridgeville may be higher than some of them based on their rate per room. It's $25 per room. If you rent a large house, you could go over $200 very easily. And you see other fees that towns charge. They're charging an inspection fee before the license is granted, habitual offender offenses. If they rent rooms out, there's $100 late fees. So the fees range all over the place between the towns. I still think ours are very low compared to other towns and very competitive, but we are looking to increase those rates. There are some other changes in the fee and rate schedule, just extending the tap fee waivers that we've been doing the past few years for residential developments, but this was the big one for me.
Okay. Thank you. All right, are there any questions from council in regards to any of these fee changes? Councilman King?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question around the rental license fees. So the total, if I saw the number correctly, there's 1,651 rentals in the city of Seaford.
That's what we billed for this year.
What is the total rental unit number?
That's the rental licenses that as we build out.
So 1,651.
Right.
Okay. How many of those are outstanding that have never paid their rental license fee?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that number offhand. There's.
Let me just volunteer during our first year. This is year 2.
It's
3 years. 3 years. So during our first couple years, we were working our way through the process. And what we do as a result of the experience we've gained in the past, people that are late or don't do it, we give them 30 days after proper notice, and then we issue them a license. And then we send them a bill for that license. Once that runs, that 30 days, then they are delinquent. And then that person, that landlord, that property owner falls under our good standing ordinance. So they technically get a license, you know, but what happens is if they want a service from the city of Seaford, if their utilities go delinquent and get shut off, they don't get reinstated or get that service going to planning and zoning or anything like that until they pay their fees that are outstanding, and we reinstate that for them. So in this process, we've had several people that have done that. I saw Trish got you that. Did you see how many last year?
Last year,
Just currently?
we have 411 total units not renewed.
Okay.
So,
So so the way we've done it is they don't really pay a penalty.
so what was that number?
411
411 haven't paid.
have not renewed, yeah. They have been billed.
Right.
But they have not paid yet.
Right, and that's part of the thing I struggle with. I don't have a problem, I'm speaking as a landlord, right? I think it's a great thing to have something in place where someone comes through and inspects your property and makes sure we have a standard. I get that, and I appreciate that. But for me, the thing I struggle with is, you know, I pay mine. I get the inspection when it's due, I pay mine. To me, I have a problem with putting a fee up, right, when there's still a certain percentage of people that have never paid it. For me, I'd rather see you come back with fix what we have, because in my opinion, what we have isn't working the way it should. So to me, I'd rather see you come back with something, some form, and I hear what Charles is saying about the accountability piece, but if I never need a service to turn on, I may not ever pay you, right?
Right.
Good. So for me, I have a problem with the increase of the rental license fee agreement. I think there's a lot of things, opportunities that we have that we currently have in what's written, and I would like to see that fixed before we move forward with a price increase with the possibility of 400, a third of what you have isn't going to pay it anyway. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Other comments from City Council? Councilman Santos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't see a reason or a good justification for raising this rate. After speaking with you guys, and trying to get an understanding of the reasoning why this was passed in the first place, I believe that the purpose is still being served, at least what the motion or the ordinance was intended to do. It allowed the city to be able to go into people's homes and make sure that the standards of living were well, they're like Councilman King said, they set a standard. It provided, it made it so that tenants didn't have to live in conditions that were bad for them. You know, if there was any major safety defects and stuff, right? And the other thing that that I believed this was intended to do was to maintain people's property values up, protect the residents, the shareholders' properties values, right? So I think that that's being done right now. I don't think that this was ever intended to generate money. You guys, I believe, knew that this was being passed at a loss. This was not supposed to generate income. It was supposed to create value to the constituents. And I'm looking at all these rate increases, and most of them tackle, you know, they are all across the board. But whenever you increase the rental fees, the rental license fee, at that point you're targeting the population that I would think is the more the ones that aren't as they aren't building equity into their homes. They're not, you know, they're renting, they're throwing the money away. It's they're 100% financing the property for someone else. So these people are losing money already, and we're going to increase the rent. If we increase the rental fee it's the landlords are going to pass on that cost to the tenants, and it's not they're not going to say, oh well, we are getting charged an extra $2 a month. They're not going to say we're going to increase your rent by $2. They're going to say, oh, we're going to increase it by $50 or $100. And I work at a real estate company that manages a lot of properties. They manage hundreds of properties. And last time that this was implemented, landlords did react. They increased rates. Everything is really high right now. If we pass this on right now, I think that the landlords are going to increase rates again. And I don't know how many people are going to be able to afford that increase in rent. I mean, if right now 10 people can't, if this affects 10 people in the city of Seaford, if you go to our website to see how many rentals we have one rental. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's going to be about $14.50 a month. 9 of those people might be homeless. So we already have a problem with the homeless population. Why increase it? We're putting the tenants against with a store in front and their backs against the wall. They have to pay that extra that increase in rent, or they're going to be homeless. So I don't think that right now is the right time to be increasing these fees. The market's not. It's not good for people that need to find a home desperately. Even if they're not looking to rent, if they're looking to buy, there's such a huge amount of people trying to buy homes right now. There's so much competition. There's not enough houses. So I don't see how we can justify raising this right now.
Any other comments or questions from council in regard to the fee and rate schedule? Councilman McCoy?
If I may ask Councilman Santos, towards the end there you said now is not the right time. And this is a general field of yours of expertise. If we were to say, for example, delay this potential fee here, when would you prefer to see it implemented?
I cannot speak for the market, for the real estate market in a year or 2 years from now. I can't even speak for next month. Yeah. But I would like to see that at least there are other options for people to rent or buy. Where the inventory, right now we have a month supply inventory about 1.1, which means that if there are no properties were to go on the market today, it'd take about 1-point-something months to get everything sold. A normal market condition is a 6 MSI, 6 months supply inventory. So once that number is not 1 or 2, 3, around, I think that would be a good time. If we go and look at rental units, when there's not just one rental unit at a rate of $14.50, I'd like to see the people to have options, not So whenever that time is, I'm hoping that the market would. Well, I can't speak for the market for tomorrow, but does that give you? So in the future, yes, but not today.
It does. I'm open to the concept of holding off on it. I'm leery of holding off on it indefinitely. I'm a little leery of that, not knowing what our direction would be with that and have that fall into the lurch. So to your point, not knowing, it's a little bit tough to put a time stamp on it and say, let's bring it up in 3 months, 6 months. That's kind of where, when we're going through this motion and looking at, we're going to approve some of these elements, if we were to delay this one, I would prefer for us to have some direction on it.
So if I could predict what the market would be next year, I'd probably be a millionaire.
I hear you.
So,
I hear you.
but I am at least giving you a basis of what numbers to look for, as far as to give people some options. So when there are more rentals, where there are more foreclosures, and when there are more houses available in the market, just right now, and I think that's coming. Rates are going to be increasing. It's going to cost people to buy less. There's going to be more properties on the market.
So just to be clear, you're not stating you want to deny the motion. You just want to put a hold on that specific element of the motion.
I'm not passing it. I'm not okay with this today, but in the future, I'm okay with discussing this.
Okay. Other questions, comments from Councilman Henderson?
With 1,651 rental units, is there a re-inspection every year?
Yes. We don't re-inspect every property, so apartment complexes that are already inspected by DSHA, we accept their inspection report. If they pass their inspection, they also pass ours, so we're not burdening those tenants with
And
multiple
how many of
inspections.
them are there?
It's a lot of the larger apartment complexes in town. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but there's a big chunk of them that we don't have to inspect. And then DSHA, when I was putting this together, they go through and do a percentage of those units every year. So they'll look at this number of units this year, pick a different number next year. So we kind of incorporated a similar plan to that for the rest of the apartment complexes. We're not going into 36 units down here at River Place, or 72 now. We're going to take a percentage of that every year and hit different ones. So we can get a good idea on what the units are looking like. So that's what the state does with their units, and we kind of adopted that for ours as well.
So how many would you do? If say half of them were, is it fair to say half of them are DSHA inspected? Or
It's
in
close to
program?
that. It's close to that.
So
You
you
got,
have
you got
800?
all the better homes of Seaford, Meadowbridge, Seaford Apartments. Yeah, it's a lot of the bigger
And
complexes.
then you would randomly pick how many of the 800?
It depends on the complex. So,
No,
down
no,
here.
I'm talking about
The remaining.
if you carve out that and you're accepting their program, that there's 800 individual homes or duplexes or whatever left.
We
right?
go through all of them.
And
We should be, yeah.
You go through every one of them. So
Every
there's
single
800,
family or duplex, yeah, that's rented out, yeah.
a 200-day work year, that's 4 a day
Yeah.
to do. How much time does that take you out of your staff of 3?
A lot. Buddy's been very busy.
And we have building inspections,
Yeah,
we
he
have
says-
construction inspections.
Yes, it's
you
regular,
have
yep.
permit applications, you have construction coordination meetings, you have a
Right.
number of other things to do. Plus you have a 25% non-payment rate, so you're only making about $62,000. Now that's billed out, and it will be recovered at some point in
Yes,
order to, if the landlord decides to sell the property or get some other city services, he would have to come into good standing, right?
We have collected a lot that
And
way.
there's probably a couple of landlords out there that haven't paid the first permit yet.
There are a few. I do want to just be clear, the 400 number that Mike gives, don't think that 400 linger on through the rest of the year. We get most of that.
Yeah, that'll come down. to
It
that.
comes
Yeah.
way down, about maybe 10% or less.
Right.
Currently.
Yeah, currently, this is
Yes.
as of
I
earlier
mean,
this
you
month.
can,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that you get 82.5 this year, whether it's by December 30th or July 1st
You're
or
correct
June
in what you're
30th or
saying.
whatever the end of the fiscal year is. I'm just concerned that, out of all that time that it takes the inspector or the official or you out, that it's a significant part of your time.
It is, yeah.
And not an insignificant part of your operating budget. And I meant to look it up, but I forgot to look it up this year. What's the, do you happen to know what the operating budget is for the building department?
350, 400,000.
Yeah, so it is a significant part, but it's designed to be self-sufficient and not rely on input from property owners. It's designed as a service to regulate rented properties and provide protection for landlords, because it offers them some protection if they get sued or get a complaint against them. They have the backing of the city of Seaford saying they got a rental license and they had an inspection. So it provides value. I'm not, if, you know, I'd be interested to know what the true cost is to administer a permit. I mean, if we're administering a permit and it costs $60 or $70 and we're only charging 50, then I think that it's fair to raise the rate to cover the cost.
I'd like to add something to that.
Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the program was created for a reason. And this is just my 2 cents, my take on it. The problem properties, those landlords aren't the ones picking up the phone, calling the city of Seaford and say, hey, come inspect my property. The people that are saying, hey, come inspect my property are the ones that are maintaining and providing a great place, a good place for people to live. So that kind of takes me back to my main concern. If I'm one of those landlords that's not maintaining my property, I'm not going to call the city of Seaford and say, hey, can you come do an inspection at my property? I'm going to be one of the landlords, the reason that we've created this, right, the one not paying the fee and having no one inspect my property.
Well, I don't think that's the case. They get issued a permit and they go inspect it.
No.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, but not every property is being inspected.
It is now.
Every
We're scheduling inspections.
regardless of if they're paying or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I
have
mean,
the
that's our
license.
That's
Yeah.
the goal, but I mean,
Right.
that we're executing that.
And listen, when you're doing 1,651, do we get 100%? No, sir. I can tell you we don't. But again, we are down to 10% or less through our process where we are now
Right.
and what we've instituted, the
Sure.
legal process. We do get them, again, 90% or better at some point. They need something from us. And when we have to do that, they pay all their back bills, and we do not institute that license until we make an
Sure.
inspection.
But it should be 100%. If I'm held to a standard, in order for me to get a permit, I'm held to a standard.
and I
And that's what I'm saying. To me, there
believe
needs
what-
to be some revision and some corrections to this program.
I believe
If
what
I'm
Mike
held
is-
to a standard, then everyone in the entire city should be held to that same standard.
Yes, sir, Councilman. I believe part of this is a late fee, $25 each license not paid after the first of each year. That is taking this, this code a step further. Because right now, there is no penalty for
Exactly.
people that do that.
Right.
If you, excuse me, if you adopt this change, that late fee will be implemented by the department.
Right, but then on the same token, based on what Councilman
Excuse me.
Santos, which I think he made a great point.
Sure.
You can implement all the costs you want to, I'm not saying every landlord, but, and it may not be, people are saying, oh, well, you're only talking a few dollars and a few cents, but the electric rate went up.
Sure.
Water rate went up,
Yes, sir.
cost of living has gone up. This, in my opinion, this fee, this increase to this fee is going right back to the tenant. In most cases, my opinion. If that cost is associated, because it's a very fine line, a small.
Understood.
It's a minimal, investment, return on investment for property owners. I get it and respect that and understand that. But this, most of this cost is gonna go back, to the person renting or renting those properties. And you can say, well, wow, it's only a couple dollars, but still, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're struggling to get through, every dollar adds up. And so, with that, I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Councilman Santos.
You know, what Councilman King is saying, I think is correct. He's a landlord. I'm also a landlord. I'm also, once I see certain costs, and my business partner sees certain costs. Well, for my business partner, one of the first things was, that came to his mind was, hey, we're gonna have to increase rent. We got these extra costs, and I was able to, talk with him and make it so that didn't happen. And I also work at a company where we manage hundreds of properties. I don't think that, and I do think that I don't think that the landlord's going to absorb the cost the way that me and my business partner did. I think that they are going to pass on those costs to the people. Last time the landlords did react, rent increased. I think they're going to react again, and rent's going to increase at a very dangerous time. I get it. The city's trying to recuperate some money. They're saying that this program is supposed to sustain itself. I think that should have been looked at back in 2009, see what, look at the cost and see that, saying that it wasn't going to sustain itself. I think that the purpose of that is being served right now, even if we don't increase the fees. And if we are going to increase something, I would rather we increase the late fee for the people who don't pay, so that we can still recuperate some of that money, and not for every, not the tenants, not the people who are paying on time. So we got our foot in the door, and I think that's a great start. But having putting people in a situation where they might be homeless, so that we can recuperate some money for this system, I don't see how that's justified.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council?
The only comment I have, Mr. Mayor, is I don't like how this is all lumped together, like as a motion, like it's everything, like, hey, let's vote on all of this.
Councilman, you can pull out a part if you would like. Okay, if you want to craft that motion, you certainly can do that.
Okay. So
Any other questions from council?
All right, thank you.
All right, if not, I will accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the changes to the tap fee waiver program, water and sewer utility rates, park rental fees, and the energy supply costs as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman,
I
questions on the
apologize.
motion, please.
Point of order on the motion itself. If we're not including the fee and rate schedule for rental license fees into the motion, what happens to that portion of the motion?
You can make another motion if this doesn't pass.
I'm not sure I understand the question, just for clarification. What's on the table now is it would not include, the rental license fees would stay the same, all of them, as they currently are.
But that could be discussed at a future juncture?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's why I just want to clarify that was still on the table.
Yes, sir.
If we're going to break out fees, should we do a motion on each individual fee that way then?
I mean, I think what's on the table is clear. The license fees are cut out of it, so, but certainly if council would like to break them out, we can do that.
Okay. Other questions on the motion?
I have a question on the motions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does that include the penalty?
It would, under this motion, my interpretation, that would be all the changes to the rental license fee. So you are correct.
Okay.
It would not include the penalty.
So the motion we have on the table is to approve all the fees that have been presented except the rental license fee increase and late fees. Okay, just so we're all clear.
I have a question on that motion, because I didn't catch that. I don't have a problem with the late fee, because, that's normally when, if I don't pay a certain amount, my rent by a certain time, I do get a late fee. If I don't pay certain thing, I get a late fee. I think that's fine. But, it creates an incentive so people do go out there and pay, so they don't have to pay more later. But increasing it to the people that are already, that's different.
Yeah, so Councilman King, you would have to amend your motion if you choose to meet what Councilman Santos is saying. Otherwise, we'll leave the motion as is and it'll stand.
And so we're going to add in.
You'd have to amend your motion if you chose to.
Right. No, I mean, I don't have a
fee.
problem holding people accountable. People paying, we're not increasing the rate.
Restate your motion then for the record, and we'll go through the process again.
Okay, the only question I have around that, when you read how it's written, it doesn't specifically talk about.
Right, you can state it however you would like, or someone else can make the motion.
I can.
There's motions on
Yeah.
the floor. There's motions on the floor.
Yeah.
Second.
So why don't we go ahead and just do a roll call on that, and we'll start over, okay? So we'll start with Councilman Santos. We're voting on what's been presented so far.
Okay. For the one that was presented, no, so that we can read.
Councilman Henderson?
No.
Councilman Holland?
No.
Councilman McCoy?
No.
Councilman Kane?
No.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion in regards to the fee and rate schedule?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for the approval to the changes to the fee and rate schedules for the tap fee waiver program, the water and the sewer utility rates, park and rental fees, energy supply cost, and for the addition of late fee for rental licenses that are unpaid within the first year with the amount of $25. I might have gone a little bit.
Just so I understand, your motion is if they don't pay within the first year, you would like a late fee?
It says here $25 each license not paid after the first of each year. So
After the first of each year. Okay, just one clarification. All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
So we have a second from Councilman King. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
No.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
And Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, so it passed. Thank you. All right. Next, we'll go on the Green Street project update
Okay,
and
so let me-
funding plan.
Let me introduce two people with us. First is Lisa Wool with the Nanticoke Watershed Alliance, and we have Mr. Brett Jett with George Miles and Buer Engineers. And they are going to present for us the Conwell Street Green Streets project. So this is not the first time council has seen this, you'll recall. We participated in a charrette some years ago, and this team has brought it to the point they're going to discuss with you tonight. So good news.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I just want to give a quick refresh because I think it was probably about a year ago that we did bring this to you guys. Conwell had some flooding issues. There's one storm drain, it got blocked and it was flowing over and going directly into the Nanticoke and kind of eroding the bank. So I think the town was, in the meantime, looking at traditional gray infrastructure fixes for this when we had a charrette. And so we came up with some green alternatives that we could then help augment the price through funding through Chesapeake Bay programs, since we're in the Bay watershed. And so we had shown you guys how these green infrastructure projects kind of work. You know, they capture water, they slow it down, they filter it out. I know you guys have a lengthy agenda, so I'm gonna kind of fly through some of this. But this is what it's gonna look like when you walk down the street on Conwell. That's a curb bump out. It'll be landscaped similarly below eye level, so it won't block view as you're parking, pulling out, any of that type of stuff. Nobody can hide in there to mug you or any of those concerns that we get sometimes.
That'd be good.
And then there's a million benefits, increases property values, scenic overlook, there's just a ton of things. And we had covered all these with you guys when we originally. So we actually were able to get the funding. We have two pots of money, one from DENREC and one from the Chesapeake Bay Trust. And so we have the money in place now to go ahead and do the implementation. So I'm going to pass it to Brent to kind of go over what we proposed and what the final.
Yeah, so when we came before you guys about a year ago, we had a nice public discussion about the parking, about removal, about how the fit and finish and feel was going to work on this. We had proposed from the charrette a parking bump out on each side. What we finally landed on was just the one on the north side, east side of Conwell.
East.
Yes. While not doing the one on the south side and actually increasing the one at the head of the street a little bit. When we did our little parking count layout, we actually didn't change the parking count of the street. So there's an opportunity either at the end to do 4 spaces head on in there or maintain the parallel. However, at the end of the day, we're not really changing the street, but we're going to improve the water quality on this. We're on that east side as well, we're going to be putting brick paver sidewalks in. If anybody's seen the sidewalk condition out there, it's not in great shape. This will reduce the amount of impervious out there, give a quality sidewalk while having the under drain and tying the first road bump out into the end. So it kind of connects the pieces while getting the green infrastructure.
I have a question. How is this addressing the end of the street down the hill?
So we're improving, the water flowing down will get into the rain garden
Okay.
and dissipate in there. We're increasing the size of that catch basin, but it'll act as an overflow.
Okay.
So instead of just straight pavement sheet flow to it, which with the sycamores down there now has the opportunity with the dinner plates to cover. It's gonna be a larger catch basin, so it won't clog up as easily on top.
Okay.
But also it'll infiltrate before it gets there. But we're gonna improve the pipe halfway down the hill as well.
Perfect, okay. Are you looking for questions from council? Anybody have a question?
Just
Councilman King?
Yeah, and just so that I'm clear, we had the original plan. We come and said we're doing this. There was a lot of questions around parking, losing parking spaces. We went out in this community and we satisfied those concerns. How does this plan change from the first vision or plan that you showed us? Is there any changes, major changes?
This is the first plan.
Uh-huh.
And then this, we got rid of this.
We're just not doing that.
So we're gonna do this, and then this is gonna come out.
Okay, so that's the only, okay. I just wanted to make, okay, all right, awesome. Thank
And
you.
no change to parking.
Okay, awesome.
Other questions from Councilman McCoy?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing. I think it's awesome. Having a chance to do the charrette and walk the streets and see what options there were, and now to see this, come to fruition in a couple months, it's going to be pretty awesome to see, and see it helped the functionality of our city. So really appreciate you guys doing it.
Thank- She has the funding, so we're gonna try to get this done before summer.
The funding's critical, right?
And just to make a couple comments, what's being asked of the city this evening is to assist in construction administration, contract administration. So they will work with the city to put the bid out, obtain a bidder. We'll execute a contract between the city and the contractor, and then the city will pay the contractor, and then with the Nanticoke Watershed Alliance, through their grant process, they will reimburse us. One thing, and one of the reasons, somebody might ask, why do we want to get into this, right? Other than, not only are we benefiting the environment, we're improving our street for our residents, but as part of our MS4 permit that we're getting ready to get with the city, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment removal credits that will be garnered from this will assist the city in meeting our goals for that MS4. So this checks a lot of boxes for us, and our partnership with this group is really a good thing.
Well, and that you were able to adjust the parking so no businesses were impacted, it's pretty key. So appreciate you guys doing that. Any other questions or comments before I ask for a motion? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make the motion to approve the city assisting with the implementation of the Commonwealth Street Green Street project to include construction and contract administration with reimbursement of expended funds by the Nanticoke Watershed Alliance as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Henderson, second.
Okay, think there are any comments or questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
And Councilman Santos?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you all so much for
Thank you,
working on
guys.
this. It's
Yeah,
really
thank
great.
you. Yeah, it's
Thank you. All right, next we have the proposal from John's Tree Service, and that's Mr. Bennett.
Good evening. Just for your reference up there now, the area I'm talking about now is the red line. That's back behind Walmart where there's a retention pond. The green line, just for reference, is coming in the other entrance. It's actually the same situation, but it's not as bad yet, and we'll put that in next year's budget. But what I'm presenting tonight, if you look in the video, where the red circle is, you can see a little bit of smoke coming up there. That was during the snow on January 3rd. The trees down that whole tree line got heavy, wet snow on it, laid over on the primaries. Don't ask me why it didn't trip the circuit, but I'm glad it didn't. They were weighted down by that heavy snow laying across the primary. What we did, we isolated these primaries and de-energized them to keep them from tripping the circuit out and causing an outage on the whole circuit 310. By doing this, we closed in the breaker, the air brake switch by grottos, and back there, we cut the lines on each end of that red line, so there's no electric going there. And that took away our ability to backfeed circuit 310. So before, if something happened, you could throw that air brake switch in and backfeed it. Right now, if something happens, We have to go back there and make those connections again, open up the air brake switch. And Circuit 310 is Walmart, Stony Brook, Hampton Inn, Lowe's, you know, that whole shopping center there. It's a big circuit, a lot of commercial out there. I've obtained permission from the people that own that property where those trees are, to have us or a contractor go on the property and trim 10 feet of clearance away from the power lines. But our vehicles, it's overgrown so much since the pole line was put in there 30 years ago, that our trucks can't get in there. There's a fence around that retention pond, and there's just not enough clearance for our bucket trucks. So he's given us permission basically for a contractor to go in there with a smaller piece of equipment, go up there and trim 10 feet clearance away from those lines. What I'm asking for tonight, if we can extend this year's contractor's scope of work to include trimming these trees, giving us back the ability to backfeed these two circuits 310 and 210, that right now we don't have. And this would be at a cost, it would be John's Tree and Landscape Service, which is who just got done trimming some trees for us in Westview. And it would be in the amount of $15,350.
All right, are there any questions in regards to the tree trimming? Councilman Santos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With this, I understand that this is I think this is pretty urgent, so I think this is okay. But for future, budgeted expense presentations like this, if time permits, I would rather see it get bid out again, so I can see, so I can compare their services with others as well. I know this is in addition to this. They already bid, and they won the bid, and then they added something else later because the city needed it. But for future, moving forward, if time permits, I'd rather see, we bid this out again. Okay. But
Can I just ask for a clarification?
Sure.
All right, so Councilman Santos, when you talk about bid, I just want to be clear, because Public Works and electric utilities, as part of our charter, council approved a modification, I believe it was in the last legislative session, and Bill's going to help me out here. He knows it real well. If projects are over $100,000, that's when we have to bid it. Between $50,000 and $99,999, we have to get quotes. Yeah.
Competitive pricing.
Competitive pricing, thank you, sir. So for something for $15,000, what the charter requires and what our standard practice has been is not to do formal bids with advertisement. We would get quotes from vendors. We would get quotes from contractors. Are you asking, are you suggesting that council deviate away from the charter and require the director of electric for something of this nature to get formal bids in the future?
No, thank you for clarifying that for me. Just whenever, with that clarification, I understand this a little bit better. But no, I was just looking at this, and in my mind, I just didn't know. I'm seeing two numbers here, one for $15,350, one for $27,850. I don't know what those numbers really compare with other people out there, with other service providers. So if in the city, if in the charter for certain, for something like this, if we don't need to do that, it's okay. We don't have to deviate.
And every year when I get ready to do my tree trimming, because we have a contractor come in every year, it's very limited. Over the last 8 years, the only people that'll give you prices for trimming around energized lawns, like behind Westview and Martin Farms, Woodside Manor, back here, the other area in front, is John's Tree Service, and now is affordable, unless it's changed. But, the other ones around here won't do around energized power lines. So it's limited, and, when we get ready to lay out what areas of Woodside Manor next year will get trimmed, because that's where we'll be next year, we contact those vendors and get prices. We give them what we want trimmed. And we get prices, and then it goes to the low bid. So this year, John's was low, so that's why I went to him and got a price for doing this.
And Director Bennett, I am correct. You budget an amount of tree trimming every year, whatever that
Yes.
number might be. You bid the areas of the city, and if that price comes in lower than anticipated, you will expand that scope of work with that vendor by change order to expend additional monies in your budget as a matter of course, will you not?
Yes, we do.
And we traditionally do that because we do our best to do estimates and guess at how much something will cost, but we don't always get it 100% right because we're not experts in this field. So we've traditionally, for many, many years, have done change orders with the standing vendor. This is a little bit of a change in that practice, and that deviates kind of away from that. And what we've done in the past with the change order is you kind of forego remobilization charges because the contractor's going to go away. He's not going to, a change order gets him while he's there, expands his scope of work, and that's an efficient way to do it, within limits. If he goes away, he has to remobilize, he's got a schedule he's got to keep. So it does change our ballgame slightly.
And I guess the reason that I was trying, why I said that was, let's say we had someone that bid for something for $50,000, someone else bid something for $60,000, and they added something additional for, like, let's say 20 or something. At that point, I wouldn't know if the first person really did bid, their bid was better, or if the other one might have added the other additional service for $5,000. But the way that, now that you've clarified that for me, that's fine.
Any other questions in regard to the Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, just a comment, as Mr. Bennett alluded to, there's very few people that do this work anyway. And due to his relationship and who he is, he's able to pick the phone up and call someone and really not someone take advantage of that. Because someone could come back and say, hey, well, I'm one of two, the only people around here that like to work around power lines. That cost could be a lot different. So I appreciate your leadership and what you bring to your team.
Thank you.
Any other, Councilman Henderson?
So I was along the same track as the city manager. I mean, to be clear, this is really a change order and not an additional contract.
Correct, yeah, it's
Because
change
he's your
order, change of
existing,
scope of work.
he's your existing contractor for the year to do
Correct.
all the work anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the proposal from John's Tree and Landscaping Service LLC for an addition to the annual trimming contract of $15,350 to clear tree branches away from the overhead power lines behind the Walmart Shopping Center as an unbudgeted expense as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you, Bill. Thank you
Thank
for your presentation, too. I mean, that helps clarify
Yeah,
where we
really
are,
good.
right?
That's
Really
pretty cool.
appreciate you leveling up with the snow and it's
Ed
really...
Tumberland gets credit for the video.
Okay, well done, well done.
Attaboy.
Great job. All right, next we're going to invite up Mr. Bailey again for first reading on Chapter 5.
It's going to be a hard act to follow.
Hello again.
Hello.
So I have a first reading for an ordinance to amend Chapter 5, Article 4 for rental licenses of the municipal code, Section 5.4.4, refuse services required, requiring every rental unit to be provided with trash collection services. And it's just a short little section here I added to that code. And this all sprung from a discussion at the planning session. Most of you were at that. So each rental unit shall be provided refuse collection services by a city licensed refuse hauler company. Each rental unit shall be provided containers that meet the requirements in subsection 10-1.2. And apartment complexes and buildings that are serviced by central dumpsters located on the property are exempt from section 5.4.4. And just as an example, these are the kinds of things that we find throughout the city at rental properties, because we currently the landlords don't have any requirement, we don't require them to provide any trash service to their tenants. They leave it up to their tenants to find their own trash services, and most of them don't. So we wind up with it piled up outside. They've just fashioned some pallets there on that one and using that as a dumpster. Big piles of trash on the porch there or just in the yards. So these are some of the things we see at rental properties in town, and so the discussion at the planning session asked me to do some research into modifying the code requiring this, and this is what I'm presenting to council tonight.
So how will we enforce this, Mr. Bailey? How does this work? So
It'll be a requirement of their rental license application. We'll ask to see proof of some contract with a licensed trash hauler company.
Okay, and is there a fine or a fee if that's not done, or how will that be handled?
So ultimately, if they, we have the right to revoke a license.
Okay.
Right.
For this, we notify them and we routinely pick this up.
Yeah.
And we bill the property owner if
Right.
it goes unpaid. We lien the property.
The thought is if we have this requirement, a lot of this will stop.
Okay.
They'll have the containers there to put the trash in. It'll get picked up weekly.
Right. Okay. All right, questions from council? Councilman Henderson?
So, the way I read this, it's the onus of the landlord to make sure that there's a service there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be provided by the landlord.
Right, they could add that as a lease requirement, that the tenant's required to, this is my trash company.
Yeah. Because, it gives the landlord some flexibility to say, tenant, you have to do this, it's city ordinance, or the landlord can choose to provide the service and escalate the rent to cover the
Yeah,
cost.
and I know several of them that do this already. We don't ask them to do it, it's part of their rental practice.
Other questions from council? Councilman King?
Mike, there was a great point brought out earlier around trash service. So let's hypothetically say I own a duplex, right? Two people, single families, one upstairs, one downstairs, and they share their trash can. Because it doesn't make sense for them to have, each of them have an individual container. Is this requiring each unit to have one, or in a situation like that, could they share a unit? Could they share a can?
We could work with them in good faith if they demonstrate that would work. If it doesn't, then we go back.
Right, because
Each unit
once
has
again,
to
if
have
we're,
their own cans.
right, if we're pushing that back right to the
Right.
tenant, and it's a situation where, hey, it makes sense, you want to save money, you're not filling it up, and you've got a can, and, A and B are sharing the can. I mean, I don't see where that would be a problem as long as it's not turning into something like this. I just want.
Right.
Okay.
Other questions from council? Councilman Santos?
Yes, if this new business number 4 was to be approved in a couple weeks, would that mean that everybody that lives within every unit, every house in the city, within city limits, would have a trash collection service?
No, this is only for rental.
Rentals.
Only for rentals?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that right there, once again, I have a problem with. I think that if we're going to do something like this, it should be applied across everybody, not just target one particular people or one particular group. And once again, it's the tenants or the landlords, however you want to see it, but it's not all the way across the board. If we're going to, I think it's more fair to pursue what was being discussed earlier, where we do operate like Laurel or Georgetown, and that way it's fair all across the board, not just targeting a group again. And I would, before I kind of did like that idea with Laurel and Georgetown, the way that they did things, because I thought that it would probably reduce everybody's trash, the amount that they had to pay if it got bundled up. Now I want to see a little bit more information to be presented for that, a little bit more research, a little, check reviews and stuff like that with those things. But here, I don't once again, I don't want the city of Seaford to target one group. If it's going to be done, let it be done all across the board or not. So that's my.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, this is a first reading. This will come back at our next council meeting. All right. Next, we have the appointments for the election officers and the Board of Elections for the upcoming election. You have the list of names that are being presented for the officers and the Board of Elections. If there are no questions or comments, I need a motion to accept those appointments.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointments of the election officers, Board of Elections, and staff members for the 2022 municipal election as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you from Councilman McCoy. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next we have the bids on the Western Sussex Business Campus horizontal, directional, drilling, conduit.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
The city, the Western Sussex Business Campus horizontal drilling conduit installation went out to bid. We received 5 bids for this solicitation, and they're tabulated here. The low bid for their total project was Chesapeake Turf LLC. It's broken down in their price for the 6-inch, 4-inch, and 2-inch conduit. I've never worked with Chesapeake Turf before. Didn't know they did directional drilling, to be honest with you. I figured they were a turf company. But they do this. I talked with a couple of their references, one of them being University of Maryland Eastern Shore, where they did a big gas project down there. And they said they were a great company to work with. So my recommendation would be to award the bid to Chesapeake Turf LLC in the amount of $159,000 and use the funds from the State of Delaware Community Redevelopment Reinvestment Fund.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions in regards to this bid? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to award the bids for the Western Sussex Business Campus horizontal directional drilling conduit installation to the low bidder, Chesapeake Turf LLC, in the amount of $159,000 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Councilman King, I'll second that.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you much, Mr.
Thank you.
Bennett.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the bids for the Route 13 sewer main extension. Mr. Mears.
Good evening. So I think all of you are aware of the Route 13 sewer main extension project we've been talking about for quite a while now. We put it out for bid and we only received 2 bids. This market is it's a little hard to get bids at the moment, so we were fortunate enough to get 2 bids. So we got 2 bids, one from JJID in the amount of $1,259,750, and then this Lindstrom Excavating for $1.823275 million. So Ben, who was here tonight from GMB, evaluated the bids, and he made a recommendation to Charles that we go with JJID bidder. So this is under the engineering cost and the amount we had budgeted for the project. We are proposing to pay for it with the ARA funds. Is that right? ARA, yeah. ARA funds. There's so many. You're correct. So, any questions?
Okay, are there any questions in regards to this bid for their sewer extension? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make the motion to award the bid for the Route 13 sewer main extension to the low bidder JJID Incorporated in the amount of $1,259,750 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman McCoy. Is there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King.
Aye.
Councilman McCoy.
Aye.
Councilman Holland.
Aye.
Councilman Henderson.
Aye.
Councilman Santos.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Mears. All right, next we have the request from Kathy Anger. Is Kathy here, or is June presenting, or?
Wait a minute, sorry, you skipped one.
Did I skip one?
Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry.
got me messed
Buck
up.
Consultants, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm rolling quick. Sorry,
got it.
Mr. Mayor.
June's gonna set us up with this.
Okay.
All right, so I have Buck Consultants on the phone, and I have Jeff Walton and Jason Fine. They are actuaries for our general employee pension plan, and they are going to present a valuation update on the general employee plan. So I'm going to try this. We'll see if we can get it going.
It might have been a break for intermission. I didn't see the sign come down.
All right, so Jeff, I think you're going to present first.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure all right, can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, it'll come up in a second. So it's just your very first screen, has the City of Seaford pension plan, general employees.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, all right, so you're ready to go.
Yes, okay. Good evening. I appreciate you letting us present the annual valuation results for the City of Seaford's pension plan for your general employees. It's just a snapshot at July 1st, 2021 of where you are. We go to the next slide just to give you an overview of what we plan to discuss tonight. You can go to the next slide. Just going brief introductions on part one, just Jason and I, and then Jason will be supporting me for the public sector public evaluation of your plan. He's had over 20 plus years of knowledge of public sector plans, and we have additional resources to assist us in the annual evaluation. I'll continue to I'm the lead actuary on the case for the past 5 years now or so, and I'm here to support June and Charles in anything that they need. They'll just reach out to us, and then feel free to reach out to Jason as needed as well. You can go to the next slide, please. This is just pretty much like a circle of what we do. Everything is cyclical in this on this slide. We have your contributions developed as for the plan year ending June 30th, 2022, and that's really just a combination of the data collected as July 1st, 2021, any assumptions or methods that we're incorporating as of that date, also assets as of June 30th as well, and any plan provisions or any changes in plan provisions. And as you know, there was a recent amendment that we reflected in the results for the July 1st evaluation that was in January 1st, 2021. So you can go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the actuarial benefit obligation. We just measure the liability and compare it to how the assets are performing at any snapshot. At this point, it's July 1st, 2021. The important thing is the very last bullet, where your contributions to your pension plan plus the investment return over the course of time will have to equal your benefits paid and your expenses paid. So obviously, if your investment return does well, that's going to lower the left side of the equation, and vice versa. And also, if you have a large amount of benefit payments or expenses, that will also lead to potentially more contributions to the plan. And all these assumptions do is just determine the cycle and the contributions over the course of time. And we try to keep those stable over the course of the pension plan. You can go to the next slide. So highlights of the year. You received a very favorable return on your market value of assets, 26.6% versus what the actuarial assumption is of only 7%. Due to how the smoothing is affecting the actuarial value of assets, you'll see that the return on the asset is only 9.7 versus 7.7. I mean, it's 7%, but keep in mind that it's still over the 7% assumed, which is great. And so what happened at July 1st, 2021, your unfunded liability basically has decreased by $278,000 as a result of the favorable asset returns. And you'll see some experience loss due to salary increases were greater than expected and some new entrant liability. But overall, it's a very favorable return on your pension plan at that snapshot of July 1st. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a year-over-year explanation of the results. The key point is you can see that the funded ratio has increased from 7/1/2019 to 7/1/2021 on both the actuarial value of assets, and you can see that is only 72.8% at July 1st, 2021 versus your funded ratio has increased tremendously, 68.9% at 7/1/19 to 80.6 at 7/1/21. You'll see that due to the favorable asset returns, your city required contribution decreased from last year. Last year at 7/1/21 it was 17.3%. Now it's 15.6. But you can see at 7/1/2020 there was a slight loss on the actuarial value of assets, which caused the contributions to slightly increase for the prior year. But at the end of the day, you end up with less than what you contributed as a percent of payroll at 7/1/19. Slightly different. And we'll expect to see the city absorb less as more new entrants are emerged into the plan at a higher contribution rate of 7%. You can go to the next slide. This is just how your assets have changed over time. Your contributions pretty much remain flat. Benefit payments slightly higher, but still lower than what they were in 7/1/2019. But you'll see the fourth line down, investment return was phenomenal. That's sticking out. And you can see on 7/1/19, your return was only 4.7% versus 7%. The next year was only 2.7% as of 7/1/2020. But then as of 7/1/21, 6.6%. And if you smooth that over a 3-year period, you're still averaging well over 10% annually over that 3-year period. Although you can see that the two prior years were unfavorable, but it still is, on an average, you're still, over that 3-year period, you still earn more than our actuarial expected return on assets of 7%. So you can go to the next slide. And Jason will take it over from here. Jason and I will be available to answer questions. But Jason, you can continue.
Sure, thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. Jeff pointed out, I'm Jason Fine, new to the team, but not new to this work. So I'm really looking forward to working with Jeff and council in June to make sure that the plan stays on track and we provide this important benefit to your employees. What you see in front of you is this picture of just the total promise. All right, so you're making a promise to each one of your participants, of a pension when they retire. So when you look at the picture, you'll see in the pinkish red the actual value of assets. So that's how much money you've put aside to fund those current benefits, the current promise to employees. What you see in yellow, or orangey yellow, at 4358, that's how much you've currently promised but have not yet paid for, right? So that's what's owed to the plan. And then in the blue, you'll see that's your future promise. So as employees continue to work and earn additional service, right, their benefit grows. So we have to fund for that each year. So part of the fund, part of determining your contribution is what's called normal cost, right? It's the cost of the benefit that's earned for the additional year of service, right? And it's split between employer and employee because employees make employee contributions. So when we look at the present value of that, we expect $1.229 million in employer-funded cost and $1.539 million to come in through employer contributions for the current employees that are in the plan. All right. So if there's any questions, please stop as we go. Otherwise, we will have a moment for any questions that you have on the presentation in total. But you can go to the next page, June, please. And the next page that should come up should be required contributions. And the important thing to see here is over the last 5 years is contributions have relatively stayed stable. Employee contributions have grown, and that's because, now we're increasing the employee contribution rate for new hires, so we do expect that to continue to grow. The cost of the benefit for the employer, which is that light blue, right, and we saw on the previous slide's picture, right, that's, staying pretty much stable, right, and then the yellow is the amount that was unfunded. So on the previous slide where we saw that piece of the pie chart that was in the yellowy orange, that's what you're currently paying. So this is how your actuarially determined contribution each year is done. It's the yellow portion plus the normal cost, the employer portion, right, and then the employee pays in a portion of the cost as well. So that you can see it's pretty much stayed stable over the last 5 years. June, can you please go to the next slide? Which should show the historical funded percentages. And that slide is really taking the value of assets over your liability. Right, so as Jeff pointed out earlier, we do a smoothing method on your assets. And the reason why we do that is to try to eliminate volatility in the plan. Because the worst thing that a government wants to see is just volatility in its contribution and have a contribution blow up its budget. Right, so what we try to do is make it so the contribution stays somewhat level as best we can. Right, and it's hard. The assets are the hardest one to predict, so we do a 5-year smoothing. All right, so as you can see in years 2015 all the way through 2020, right, the actuarial value exceeded the market value. That's basically saying that assets are going to catch up. They haven't performed to expectations, but we expect that it will. And then you see in 2021, right, that it far surpassed expectations. So now market value is actually higher than the actuarial value of assets. And what that's saying is we expect that there might be some pullback on market value and actuarial will grow and eventually it'll come more in line. Jim, please go to the next slide. Which should be about participant counts. And what you'll see on the next slide, as far as participant profile, again, you stayed stable. You haven't, the City of Seaford participants have not grown, right? In 2017, you had a total of 112 participants. In that light green, right, those are the ones that are currently collecting benefits. The gray area is those that are terminated from the city but did not collect their benefit yet, but they're entitled to one, right? And in blue, those are your actives that are earning benefits. So it's pretty much stable. If someone leaves, you replace them. But you haven't hired, it looks like to me, additional positions, at least since 2017. June, can you please go to the next slide? Which should be key plan terms. And the reason why we're showing this is it shows the definition of how benefits are determined, but also pointing out that, the city's doing it, and council, it's doing its job of, recognizing costs are increasing and what can we do, right, so the costs don't get out of control. So as of 1/1/21, you made some changes, approved some changes that will help to reduce future costs, such as averaging the final average benefit over a 5-year period rather than 3, putting a cap on service of 30 years, right, when calculating the benefit, and for new hires hired on or after 1/1/21 will contribute 7% of pay rather than 5. So these changes will help shift cost a little bit more to the employee with their contributions and help reduce the benefits slightly, which would lower costs. And these are all to recognize, the fact that people are living longer and collecting benefits for a longer time, which raise the cost of, funding for these benefits. So making these changes helps to mitigate that. So June, please go to the next slide. Not sure if you're going to see any movement on this next slide, but it's the best an actuary can do. We're trying to show a little fire, a little hot topic. But if you, June, you can go to the next slide, which just what we want to point out is potential risks to fund the financial condition of the plan, right? So what this is saying is we want to make sure you're aware, right, that when you have a defined benefit plan such as yours, there are risks that the employer, the sponsor, is taking on. The biggest one is on the left, the investment risk. If you do not achieve your 7% return, it goes back to that balance equation that Jeff pointed out earlier. The contributions plus your investments must equal your benefits plus your expenses over the life of the plan. And if you're not achieving the 7%, well, and you're not reducing benefits and you're not reducing expenses, well, then it goes right into added contribution. So that's where the investment risk comes in. Contribution risk doesn't really apply to you guys because you guys are doing your job. I mean, we determine and actually determine contribution, and you guys have been depositing that. It's not the case a lot of time with all public sector clients. You'll see some where the actuary determines the contribution and they don't make the full contribution. That's putting the plan at risk and the participants at risk. So I commend you that you're making the recommended contribution, and I think June, you even mentioned when we talked that you exceeded that contribution. So I commend you guys for that. Next one is salary increase risk. So if you were to give higher increases in salary, merit increases, whatever, more than our 4% expectation, right, that would be a loss to the plan because you'd have to fund for those higher benefits. And the same thing with demographics. If people are living longer, if people are retiring earlier and there's cost to the plan for that, that's a risk that you will take by not having appropriate assumptions in place, which is what the actuary's job is. That's what we do. We analyze the plan, make sure that our assumptions are reasonable and appropriate to fund these benefits. June, can you please go to the next slide? And as Jeff pointed out earlier, I mean, the plan is in great shape from having such a significant investment return from 7/1/20 to 6/30/21. So what we're hearing in the actuarial community, a lot of buzz from the actuaries, is plans like yours that use that use an open amortization. And what I mean by that is you each year when we do the valuation, we amortize your unfunded over 30 years. And then the next valuation, we do it again. So basically what that's doing is pretend like you own a house and every year you refinanced your unfunded balance, right, over a new 30-year term. That's essentially what you're doing. And you're hoping that the investments like you had last year happen where then it really dramatically decreases the amortization amount. But what we would like to propose, right, is to move away from the open amortization and close it. And what that would do is it would lock in that contribution and say we're locking in to pay off the unfunded. All right, so on the left is your current method. That's how we develop your actual determined contribution. It's the normal cost that I talked about earlier, the open amortization that I just mentioned, and you subtract off what the employees contribute, and that's the amount that the employer is responsible for. Right? Your ADC, the actual amount at 7/121's valuation was about a $471,000 contribution requirement. Right? But there's the alternative to that, is if you said, okay, we're going to pay off the 30 year, we're locking in our payment. If you had went back instead of 7/120, that when we do the 7/121 valuation, right, we're going to adopt this new method, right? The normal cost stays the same because you're not changing the amount that you're providing to your employees, right? And the employee contributions will stay the same because they're still going to contribute the same amount, right? You're not changing pay or anything like that. You're just affecting the amortization component, right? So if I went back to the 7/120 report, the amount of the unfunded amortized over 30 years was that 363,118 number, right? And then, as I mentioned on the previous slide, you have risk, right? So we make assumptions, and each year when we do the valuation, right, we determine how close we were, right? And that difference is either a gain or a loss, right? And in fact, at 7/121, you had a gain on liability mainly due to assets, and then there was a mortality update, so that had a little bit of a favor in your favor of lowering liability. But that's what those two bases are. If we took those differences and amortized them now over 20 years, right, you'd see the total ADC is not much different, right? But now you're committing to paying down the amortization. See, it would only be 29 years remaining on that 30-year closed amount. Now, this is just hypothetical. We're not going to go back and redo the 7/121 valuation, and I'm not asking the council to vote on anything tonight, but I do want to put this in front of you and have a further discussion, so when we do the 7/122 valuation, we look at the alternative method and possibly adopt a new method to fund the liability of the plan. And that's pretty much what we have for you tonight. If you go to the next slide, June, it should just be questions. And then after that, it just says you're not going to use what we told you for evil purposes, and that's it. So at this point, if anyone on the council or has any questions for us, please ask.
Any questions from
that slide there,
council?
June, says you're not going to use what we gave you for evil purposes. That's pretty much it.
Any questions from council?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Henderson?
I know, I can see everyone.
Thank you for the presentation. This is Councilman Henderson. How soon after the end of the fiscal year would you be making recommendations for us to consider?
Jeff, can you answer that? Do you know how soon, when we collect data and assets, we typically would have a draft ready to show? Just a draft.
In September, October, that area, when we normally produce those results for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I think we're good, June. Thank you so much.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good night.
All right, next we have on the agenda tax appeals to set the date.
Yes, we have spoken with PTA Delval, our tax appraiser, and they are available. So we would like to set public tax appeals for March 8th, 2022.
Okay, are there any questions in regards to setting the tax appeal date to March 8th? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to set real estate tax appeals to City Council on March 8th, 2022 for 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman McCoy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next we have the revision to the live stream public meetings on budget workshops.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
You guys have in your packets the live streaming policy. Council is aware of this policy. It went into effect on July 13th when the governor lifted the state of emergency. We had sort of adopted it when we were under the state of emergency. It has now been put in place, and we just wanted to clarify item 2C that's in there, where it speaks to that we do not live stream other public boards, commissions, public forums. We just really wanted to call out that those include budget workshops, planning sessions. That is primarily for the reasons of doing mayor and council meetings.
Okay. Any questions in regards to the policy on live streaming? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the revision to the live streaming of public meetings policy to state that budget workshops will not be live streamed as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on this one. Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
It should also include planning sessions as stated in the, not just budget workshops.
It's as presented, so
Okay.
what they have
His
there.
motion was just for budget workshops, so
Yeah, we evolved it, but it's as presented.
I just
so-
wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trish.
Okay, under old business, we have the second reading of the ordinance regarding pedestrian safety, and the chief is here to
Good evening.
present
Good
or
evening.
answer any questions council has, I guess.
So, I guess to start off, would you like me to reread the ordinance, or do you want me to provide the information that Councilman Henderson had asked for about pedestrian crashes and things of that nature first, sir?
That'll be
Any word?
fine. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Councilman Henderson asked me to come back and provide some additional information regarding pedestrians that were involved in crashes in 2021. And I think you should have that in your board packs. I'll go through it quickly. 2021 crashes, as I said before, had significantly increased. There were 77 injuries, 1 fatal, and 264 of those crashes were reportable, 284 were non, meaning it fell below a certain threshold. However, when we broke it down into pedestrians, there were 6 pedestrian-involved crashes in 2020. There were 13 in 2021. That's more than a 50% increase involving pedestrians. When I presented the last council meeting of January, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I believe it was somewhere around 25 or 28 crashes. In the liaison report that you have in your board packs that Councilman Henderson is going to present, I believe we're at 77. We had a significant uptick in crashes, and it's not just in Seaford. The Delaware State Police have 6 fatalities right now pending from hit-and-run accidents. They have no leads on. Their fatalities and their crashes are also significantly increased. All you got to do is look in the paper. And I want to reiterate from the last meeting, because I know that there's a letter from the ACLU that may very well be addressed tonight, and that's fine. But I want to make it clear, once again, this is a pedestrian safety ordinance. And I want to go back since I was hired, since May of 2019, just to give you an idea. My job is to look at everything, criminal complaints as well as traffic complaints. What can we do to implement safety measures for all of it, life safety measures? And so if you recall, I implemented a reduction in speed on 12 of 15 streets that we did a traffic study on. If you recall, I did a 13-page traffic study report and submitted that to DelDOT here, just recently, for West Seaford for speed reduction out past the Montessori. I actually had looked at 2 prior speed studies out there, ended up submitting the 3rd one. We're currently looking at other traffic-related safety measures because we have high crash volume over at Bridgeville Highway and Heron Run Road. And that actually was also supported by DelDOT coming to us and telling us that we had a problem. We was like, we know we have a problem. And I think we've realized now what the problem is. And quite frankly, it's more to do with the traffic light than anything, because there's no left-hand turn signal on Bridgeville Highway turning from that traffic light to turn to go onto Heron Run Road. And with all the cars coming from different directions, I think that's been a lot of the crash problem. So we're going to be submitting a request there. You even have another issue with Virginia Avenue and Bridgeville Highway with pedestrian crosswalking there the traffic is horrendous. And as well, you know, we had the fatality with the bicycle right at the intersection at Norman Eskridge and Bridgeville Highway. So now we're looking at McDonald's intersection, that whole area that we talked about last time with 50 crashes last year and 44 up on the Heron Run roadside. And I don't think there would be too many people in this room or anywhere that couldn't say that when you're traveling up and down the highway that you haven't seen tire marks running across the median, pretty much anywhere, any given area, and not just in town limits, but everywhere. And so I'm looking at this from, once again, a pedestrian safety measure. I'm only making a recommendation, and I know that the ACL submitted a letter, and I'm fully prepared to answer questions related to that. And if there's anyone that has any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer them.
All right, any questions from council in regards to the second reading? Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Chief, great job on the presentation. What protocols do we already have in place? So, we're going in, we want to implement this ordinance, saying we want to do this. So what safety protocols are already in place?
To address pedestrians and medians currently?
Yes.
So currently, there really is none, quite frankly. I mean, if you're in a median right now, there's really not a lot that we can do. Now, if you were to go back and look at the ACLU letter or look at people that are trying to enforce a specific title under the criminal code under loitering for the purpose of begging, you could go back and cite people for doing that. We've not done that, number one. Number two, the Attorney General's office did issue a letter back in 2016 saying to not do that. Right? I think there's still some folks that are still doing it. And now they're looking at legislation to change it, to remove that particular statute, right, from the law. And that's fine, because this is not a loitering for the purpose of begging ordinance. So if somebody were to step out onto a roadway, as the lady in the ACLU letter mentioned, there's certain provisions that you have at your disposal. Certainly there's a Title 21 section that under 4147A that we can cite people if they step out into a roadway. I'm not talking about a roadway though. You know, if you look at the ordinance, it's specifically dealing with the median. And then 200 feet back from an intersection on any side road that's coming off of a median. And in fact, if you remember last year when Planned Parenthood came to us, Charles, I apologize, city manager, and we had a meeting here with them because they wanted to talk about where they were going to start to do protests and marches. If you recall, I produced a document to you and to the members from the pro-life folks, I believe even to the Director of Economic Development. And the only thing I had in there really, the specific things, was I did a crash study. Because once again, that was after DelDOT came to me about the concerns for the crashes at that intersection. And the only thing we presented them with was say, this is a high crash area. Here is the crime view mapping of all the crashes from a given period of time. And I looked specifically at the day and the date. And I said, I have no problem. We'll support you, make sure everybody's safe, but if it's at all possible, please try to stay away from this area on this particular day between this time. And it happened to be a Thursday, and that just happens to be the day that they need to be there because that's the day that they perform the abortions. So I'm like, that's fine. I just want them to have the knowledge, be armed with the knowledge that be careful because there's a lot of crashes, and that's going to cause even more distraction. So everything we do is trying to be from a perspective of pedestrian safety and traffic safety. And I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. And so there are, Title 21 does have a charge if you step out into the roadway. They do have a charge if you stop your car in the middle of a roadway. But this ordinance more specifically deals with when someone stops suddenly, someone jumps out onto the roadway and they reach into a car. You know, you're getting into another situation here where you could charge them with that. But then this is more holistic. You're dealing with it as an ordinance, and you can address it from different perspectives at that point. I don't want to charge anybody. And in fact, we just signed a contract in MOU. We are now effectively, we have a police diversion program. I oversee the grant now for Laurel and Seaford. We had clinicians already working there today. They came out Monday. We were at the building. We're going to be getting together to talk more about that soon. And so now we have more services that we can offer to try to avoid just the opposite. We're trying not to arrest people. There's a whole host of charges now that we can address. by through diversion and getting them services that they may need. So if we run into somebody that happens to be a panhandler, like the ACLU letter wrote, these are people that are homeless. These may be people that can't feed themselves or are falling on hard times and things of this nature, then we're there to actually help provide services, and we partner with Love Inc. You can't get any better than that. And there's other agencies that are willing to provide the shelter and the food and things of that nature. But we wouldn't be charging them. We'd make them aware through education, try to get voluntary compliance. We'd write a report document, hand that literature off. And by the way, we have these services. What can we do to help you? And if they come back and they keep coming back and they refuse the services, then at some point they would be charged, because the goal is to try to make that environment safe. Right. It doesn't matter if it's a panhandler or if it's just somebody that is just loitering. So that's kind of what I'm trying to present.
Can I, just one more follow-up on that?
Okay.
So let's say I'm out there, right? I'm James for Change. I'm running for re-election. I'm out there with my banner and I'm waving it. Forget the fact of the conversation around panhandling or someone being homeless.
Yes, sir.
Let's say I'm out there, I'm voicing my constitutional right of freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And so would this pedestrian safety measure apply? It applies to everyone, right? So we're not targeting someone panhandling. We're not targeting someone homeless. We're saying, hey, regardless of what anyone's doing, you can't do it in this location because of safety.
You're correct. Okay. They're on the sidewalk. The idea of the sidewalk is to walk from point A to point B. If you're in a crosswalk, point A to point B, as long as it's safe to do so, wait for the 2 cycles to come. And so it applies to everybody. The news just happened to put up their panhandling ordinance, and then everything in the content, if you read it, was all about pedestrian safety and the crashes. So,
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Councilman McCoy.
I think it was part of our conversation last time around, and you hinted at it a minute ago, 200 feet, the distance itself. Are we going to have any kind of markers or anything to show that kind of distance, like a visual representation?
Yes, sir. Mike Bailey and I talked about, you would measure actually from the center of the intersection out 200 feet, and we have to have a conversation if it's just going to be a painted line or if it's going to be a marker. And that's something that we would have to come up. How are we going to make that visible, and how are we going to educate the community? We would certainly, I would recommend that Councilman Henderson and I do what we did before. We would do a short video, educate people, try to get that voluntary compliance, show them what the markers look like, have it posted on our city website, our police website, maybe have some flyers out in the lobby there, and of course at the police department in our lobby. So we would try to do everything we could to educate folks, just like we did when we changed the speed limit. We waited 4 months before we did anything once we made that change.
Right.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions from council? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the ordinance revisions to amend Chapter 12, Article 1, General Provisions of the Municipal Code of Seaford, Delaware, relating to pedestrian safety as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call
I have
vote.
one question.
Yes, sir.
Last time that we got a letter saying that something was constitutional, the city solicitor advised us to explain why we were voting. Do we have to do that today, or?
I mean, this specific one, when I did receive it, I did send an email to the city solicitor making him aware of it. I asked him if we needed to read it into the record. He told me that we did not, because every council person received it, and we don't have public comment at our meeting. The chief has stated that this is not a panhandling ordinance, which was referenced. This is a pedestrian safety ordinance. I don't believe it's necessary in this case, but certainly if you feel like you'd like to, you can.
That's correct. Any other questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Henderson?
In order to increase pedestrian and vehicular safety in the city of Limits, I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Holland?
Yes.
Councilman McCoy?
Yes.
Councilman King? Yes. Councilman Santos?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the public safety of everybody. I'm panhandling has nothing to do with it in my vote. So I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you. It's unanimous. Again, Chief, thank you for your leadership on this, bringing this to us. Appreciate it so much. Okay, reminder of meetings.
Okay, we just have a couple. Sussex County Association of Towns, the SCAT meeting will be at the Laurel Fire Hall, 6 p.m. on March 2nd, 2022. So if you'd like to go and you have not signed up, please see the city clerk, Ashley Heineke. And then we have a municipal election, April 16th, 2022. As everyone's aware, 2 positions are up, the mayor for a 2-year term and 1 council person for a 3-year term. As of today, Mayor David Genshaw has filed for re-election. Pat Jones has also filed for election for mayor, and then Councilman McCoy has filed for re-election. I'll say, all candidates must be filed by 5 p.m. this Friday. That's the last day. So that's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll do committee reports. We'll start off with administration and IT. Councilman Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following meetings were attended by city staff: the Utility Building Expansion Project Progress Meeting, the 2022 Riverfest Committee meeting. They met at the Senior Center to discuss the potential gym and HC ramp expansion, and they met with U.S. Senator Carper to discuss the EDA funding opportunities. They also attended the Route 13 sewer extension bid opening. They attended the Dollar Tree opening. They attended the officers swearing in at the PD, attended the Rotary meeting, and participated with the mayor and Trish in a city update presentation to the group. For the IT report, they completely upgraded the VDI environment to the latest software levels. They met with Peninsula Electric for 2 projects at the police station. They got quotes for the electric bike, separate outlets, and adding outlets for the command vehicle. They upgraded video camera server to the latest milestone software. For administration, they've begun training the new account representative. They've issued the fiscal year 2023 budget schedule. All other business is routine. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we have Police Fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best to abbreviate the report due to the late hour and the continuing business. I have a report from Chief Wilson from the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department. Call responses January 1 to yesterday. In-city fire responses were 72. In-city EMS responses were 320. Out-of-city fire was 58, and out-of-city EMS was 259. They did assists for 18 mutual aid assists, and they also assisted with EMS 26 calls. There's a list, an extensive list of significant calls. They've been very, very busy. I'll let you look at that. Under apparatus, E87.5 is out of service for annual DOT inspection and some recall work. However, I did see it traveling north this afternoon from Salisbury, so it may very well be back in service. Rescue 87 will be going out soon for intermittent issues with the coolant sensor. Under EMS, activities of note, and most unfortunately, they responded to a fatal shooting on February 20th off of Norman Eskridge Highway. Seaford Volunteer Fire Department is still seeking additional part-time employment for EMTs. The department remains very active in the community, and there are several bullet points along that line. And the chief did make a special note to thank Lowe's, the City of Seaford, and the contractor David Miller, who donated time, materials, and a permit to build a ramp at Fire Police Captain Ken Tull's home on the 31st of January. So many thanks to those folks who helped out and assisted Mr. Tull with his recuperation. I have a report here authored by Chief Marshall Kraft from the Seaford Police Department. You'll see the column 2022 year to date, where there are 1,183 total complaints, 731 crimes, 12 burglaries, 1 robbery, and this is year to date, not the period. 50 drug crimes, 1 overdose, 1,001 traffic tickets, and 274 e-tickets, 7 DUIs, and 75 crashes, with 89 false alarms. You'll see the criminal section here. We had 371 responses, and you'll see the distribution: 25 felonies, 96 misdemeanors, 5 violations, 1 civil, and 244 other, with an overall clearance rate of 86%. You'll see the crime view chart and the distribution and the days and times of the most activity. You'll see the spikes there. And in traffic, there were 509 contacts, resulting in 150 citations and 35 warnings. 4 DUIs. Fortunately, none of them were crash related. 48 crashes, 3 injury crashes, 22 non-reportable, 23 reportable, 8 hit and runs, and 1 pedestrian accident at the Duck Inn Car Wash. Move on, you'll see a number of significant events. Most of the significant events, unfortunately, resulted in, it depends on how you look at it. Fortunately or unfortunately, they got guns off the street. They recovered firearms. There were a lot of weapons violations. But unfortunately, there is a report here regarding the homicide that's occurred on February 20th. This investigation has been turned over to the Delaware State Police Homicide Unit for further investigation. You'll again see the administration activities, the events that were, the major events that were attended, and the training. On 2/16, there was the chief attended an outward mindset active bystander training, and on the 17th there was covert surveillance techniques attended by Seaford PD officer. The officer's not named because it's covert. At the end, you'll see the total criminal arrests and their distribution between adults and juveniles. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Code, Parks and Rec, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start off with Parks and Recs. They are gearing up for the spring/summer season. They have trimmed trees, cleaned grills, and painted over graffiti at Rottnest Park. And the Recreation Department has held its final weeks of Youth Wrestling Clinic, which is hoping to bring it back in the winter of 2023. Basketball games began in January, with playoffs beginning the week of February 21st. Pictures by Hilltop Studios have been completed on the works of being distributed back to the teams. And registration for the Spring Youth Soccer League is open, ages 14 to 13, and games will begin in early April. So far, 16 children have registered. And they are beginning advertising for the second annual basketball shootout. And that concludes Parks and Recs, and we'll switch over to Code. And 7-Eleven store and car wash is being framed and plumbing is underway. And the Nylon Capital Dollar Tree is up and running and open for business, and all of the work is routine. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Electric, Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had a few highlights here. Since the last report, the crew have fixed the lights in the industrial park, had training on a new locator, and helped Public Works pushing snow with the backhoes. In regards to our director, he had a standard director's meeting, council liaison meeting, and staff meeting. Had a meeting at Sir Optimus Park with Charles, Trish, Ed, and Greg about the parking lot paving and what we must do ahead of time. Had an introduction meeting with the CEO of DEC. Over the next few weeks, Dylan Calloway will take week 1 of 8 for lineman school. We'll continue working in Bel Air multifamily and continue changing the lights on Sussex County Sussex Highway to LED. Before I conclude my report, just want to thank the city leadership, Police Chief Kraft, Chief Wilson, and Jim Bowden. Many of you guys know he helped me with a special project for a special young man out there, and I asked for some help with it, and thereby came to my assistance and then some. So it was very nice to see everybody help out with that project, and just want to say thank you for that. So that's been my report.
Well done, Matt. Next, we have Public Works, Wastewater, Councilman King.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. Due to the time, I'm just going to read some of the high-value activities that's going on around our community. I'll start with the Public Works Department. They're continuing some work out to the Bel Air property, installing fire service, boarding up properties for code, as well as cleanups throughout our community. They've also started cleaning out key sewers. They installed new service on South Bedford. Burley is getting a lot of calls, and he's spending a lot of time around the dealing with the connection backflow installation. So he's spending quite a bit of time there with just still a lot of questions around that process. Equipment maintenance is being done, and all this is happening still with one person down in the department. So if anybody knows of anyone that wants a good job, just tell them to come apply here at the city. I'm going to jump over to the wastewater treatment facility. All is operating well. Plant performance remains good. There's no major equipment maintenance needed. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. I know it's a late night, so it's not a late night. It's a late night for some. With that, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, Jay, good evening.